The class rebalancing brought some changes to some classes, but the most important and most impactful one was on the Neon Ninja, which ended up just giving a very important change to its most important ability, the Shadow Flip. Now the Shadow Flip, instead of just going backwards on the direction that you're aiming, now it goes forwards, making the Neon Ninja a much easier class to play. So I'm going to be using this class at 55,000 power rank, but of course 43,000 power rank. I need to just do a bunch of the gem swaps to actually just end up using this character. So let me do that real quick. Alright, so here we are, almost at 57.3 KPR, and here's going to be my stats. And by the way, before anyone just says any stupid like this, I am not using a damage build. This is 100% a speed build, so no damage ally, vampire and vanquisher, no soul subclass. The start are just focusing on speed because it's the build that I normally rock on the night, so I can do a proper comparison between the two. I also changed my drip a little bit. Rate it in the comment section down below. Anyways, let's get started. I am not expecting a whole lot in terms of damage output for the Neon Ninja because it didn't get like a whole lot of damage increase. It was mainly on the shuriken damage, but this is going to be mainly focusing on the character, on how it's just going to perform. I've never used the Neon Ninja, and I was somewhat interested in how the character just performs, and now with this change, it's going to be a perfect excuse to use the Neon Ninja. It's more than likely going to just kill relatively quickly regardless, because at the end of the day, any character can just do really well, but is it going to be efficient? That's the question of the day. First dungeon was okay. I definitely noticed the lack of damage, but it wasn't as bad as I originally thought, because still, like, the basic attack is still 2.85, so he's probably more than likely going to kill relatively quickly. But just like the Shadow Hunter is very stat dependent, more than likely you would like to just end up using the character with, instead of full movement speed build, just having some damage on it, like a damage ally, soul sub, because the character is already moving really quickly, so sacrificing some movement speed is not going to end up hurting the character a whole lot. Yeah, this is definitely the highlight, being able to just do this, especially if you do have like one energy regen at least, which I do have it on my ring. But yeah, having one energy regen is going to be like very helpful with this character in general, because you will be spamming this a whole lot. This is more than likely going to be like an interesting shift for people that use the Neon Ninja, because a lot of people, more than likely, that was a really good kill time. More than likely, a lot of people are going to definitely notice a big improvement, because most players use the Neon Ninja by going backwards, even though you could have used the Neon Ninja without having to look backwards. If you are planning on using this character, from what I could tell immediately, you need at least some damage on this character, not just full speed like I'm running right now, which, let me just do that real quick. I don't think the loss in speed is going to be that much of a difference. This character is already relatively quickly. This is more than likely going to end up being what you end up wanting to use on this character, from what I could tell already, because that damage increase is going to be very, very helpful. Much better kill time, and it still feels relatively quickly. By the way, stats. Yeah, most definitely I've noted that still Unker Skull is kind of rough because of the range, similar problems as the Knight, but even more so because the hit detection is just worse and the damage is just far less, so you end up spending more time killing every single random enemy, from what I could tell. Shuriken almost one-shot, so I would assume that with a damage build and higher PR, you could probably one-shot world bosses with Martial Emblem, of course. Not regular 1-star bosses, and probably if you go like full 100% on damage, but you will be losing so much speed if you end up doing that. Don't sacrifice too much speed. This character is all about the speed, and well, you can easily just tell. By the way, if you were expecting me to do a Delph checkup, the hell no. This character, I know for a fact that this is way worse than all of the characters that I've done thus far. This character is definitely not built for this. Oh my god, this is horrible. Oh Lord Almighty. Over 5 minutes and 170 is crazy work. There's no way in hell I'm going to even do the vault. I already saw what I needed to see. And that was it for the live commentary portion. Now, time for the post commentary that no one likes to watch. And I don't have a lot of things to say outside of the same thing that I've already explained on the live commentary portion. So, of course, don't use this class in the deep delving. It's literal pain in the... Just like the Shadow Hunter, it's very stat dependent. In fact, this is even more stat dependent than the Shadow Hunter. You cannot run with very low stat and expect to be super efficient, because outside of the speed, the character is not the best, at least for long shade. Now, I need to be perfectly clear. When I say something is just like not good enough or not great, it's comparably speaking to the other classes. If you have good enough stat, you will do well, no matter the class that you're using. Before anyone just goes into very defensive, oh, I've already have like a maxed out Neon Ninja and I can do really well. well, you probably could do really well with a maxed out Neon Ninja. It's just that if you use those exact same stats or even lower stats on another character, probably you will do a little bit better. So of course it's going to be viable outside of the delves. That the delves are just not fun. Anyways, I feel that I needed to be perfectly clear because a lot of the things with the Neon Ninja are not in this class's favor. Now the main reason is because of the damage. Neon Ninja has always been a class where its kit relies 100% on one-shotting with the shuriken. All of the tools of the class aren't really that great. They either do very little damage, like the Stasis Blade with 4.5, take too long to get, like the final technique with this 40 seconds of cooldown and easily gets deactivated by one shadow flip, take too long to set up like in the case of the shuriken, or not consistently high fast damage, which is in the case of the basic attack, which does 2.85 at 2 attacks per second. Many classes can do more damage or are faster, or in the case of the knight, both. Candyman Red does 3.25, Revenant is 4.2, Knight is 4.55, Vanguard is 3.8 and then 4.5 on Uppercut, Patrixer is 6.5, Dino Tamer on Ult is 4.75, Bard Stage 2 is 4.5, Stage 3 is 7. Even though the Neon Ninja's basic attack is like the main damage, is slightly above average at best. This class is literally move fast, kill slow, which is definitely noticeable against something like 3-star bosses, which you will be doing a whole lot in Long Shade, especially if you do 5-star dungeons, and Curse Skull, which has ranged enemies. Again, 5-star dungeons has a lot of ranged enemies inside Curse Skull. Everything screen, this class is not so great, which is why you never saw this class being used prior to this patch. And after this patch, it pretty much remains the same, because as a reminder, the only thing that got changed on the Neon Ninja outside of the Shadow Flip is getting a 20% damage increase to the Shuriken, and even with my stats at 13.5k light, it was still not enough to one-shot world bosses, which are the weakest bosses inside Long Shade. Once again, I need to preface that yes, you can be efficient if you have the stats, but the majority of the players do not have the stats, and these problems are going to be very apparent with lower PR or stats. Despite all of that, the new Shadow Flip feels quite great, even though it's going to destroy people's finger by spamming the Shadow Flip like all day, every day. So a fair warning on that one, but the mobility and the overall speed is just excellent. It feels good, it's fast as hell. So even if you don't like this class for Long Shade, low portal, low delve, highly recommend you to try it out if you haven't already. I'm not kidding, it's something to behold. I would recommend to have at least one energy regeneration or either ring or weapon, and I feel it's more than enough. And now I'm not going to explain every single ability in detail because I don't feel it's too necessary for this particular class. Regardless, just going to do a quick recap on the abilities. Basic attack 2.85 times damage multiplier, 2 attacks per second, 4 block range, inconsistent hitboxes, is alright, slightly above average at best. Shadow Flip, I've already mentioned, is really good as a mobility tool right now, especially after the November patch. Still gives the 50% movement speed buff. Stasis Blade is 4.5 times damage, is now a little bit more useless than before, because now if you want 4 mobility, just do the Shadow Flip. It's just going to be faster, better, and overall just cost less energy. And the final technique is going to be the ability that you will be using mostly on bosses for the most part, because it's your highest DPS ability. It does 5.5 times damage multiplier, and the attacks per second is tied to your basic attack, so it is 2 attacks per second at base, 6 attacks per second at maximum, and the hitbox on that ability when you have the final technique is the projectile, not the sword swing. Once again, as a reminder that it will get cancelled out if you do one Shadow Flip. That's essentially all of the ability. As a quick recap on the character, this to me is an end game class. It'll be not too effective unless you have high stats. The basic attack slightly above average, and honestly your only consistent damage tool, and so don't expect really fast kill time. Even though the damage on the shuriken got increased, pretty much the kill time will remain roughly the same. So the basic game plan remains the same as before the latest patch. So if you struggle with this class prior to this update, then this change will not change that fact. Of course, with the exception, the change to the Shadow Flip made the mobility on this character top of the line. So if you only care about moving fast and don't care about the damage, then this is going to be the class for you. Of course, it's just recommended to have one energy regeneration if you want to use Shadow Flip more effectively. And try to avoid jumping too much, of course, because it will just cancel out the energy regeneration. Overall, excellent class for low portals and low delves, and if you do have high stat, then potentially Long Shade. As for high delves, avoid it like the plague because you're going to lose a part of yourself, and at the end of the day, it's just a class to try it out right now. That's all for today. Make sure to do all of the stuff that content creators always ask, but no one ever does, and I hope to see you next time. Take care, keep on hunting, hope to see you soon with another class.